Good day, Photoshop cadets! Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at how to edit video inside of Photoshop. And I've already opened up a video clip here. I've opened up this piece from Pexels, pexels.com, and it is a video of a butterfly. Let me go ahead and play it right here. Video of a butterfly sitting on a flower. Nothing too crazy necessarily, but we're going to go ahead and edit this together in with several other clips to make a nice little presentation. If, say, for example, you were promoting a business or doing like a show reel or something like that. Now, Photoshop's video editing tools are fairly rudimentary. You wouldn't want to use this as your primary video editor if, say, for example, you're editing something on a regular basis, whether it be some kind of vlogcast or YouTube videos, or maybe you have like church videos or whatever it happens to be. The reason why it's a little sluggish in a lot of different respects, it's not designed the same way specifically as a standard video editor would be. Say, for example, like the way it plays back, it buffers quite a bit. There's just certain caveats that you wouldn't want to use on a regular basis. What it is good at is stitching together a couple simple video editing clips, adding some simple transitions, putting some music behind it, adding some simple motion effects if you like to, and it's already built in the software that you're probably already accustomed to using, so you don't have to learn how to use Premiere from scratch, or you don't have to try to find a third-party video editing application. But again, if you are like on the Mac, you might want to stick with something like iMovie or Final Cut Pro. If you're on the PC side, there's a lot of different options as well that you might want to consider. Even the HitFilm is free for both platforms if you choose the Express version. So it's just a little bit of warning, just to kind of get you started that, okay, well, it's great what you can do here. And if you're just looking to attach some clips together, perfect. If you want to do something more advanced, this is not the tool for you. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I've already opened up a clip to get started, as you can see, and that automatically changed my timeline here, or actually my interface, into the motion workspace. Now I can take a look at that under the window menu here, down underneath the workspace. You see I have this little tab called motion here that's checked now. And if anything looks out of place, you can always go and click on reset motion as well to make sure all your panels go back to their default locations. But the key here is your timeline that appears at the bottom. And in my timeline, you'll see I have a little clip of my video represented right here. I actually have the timeline itself. You can actually see everything's kind of segmented out to these little 15 frame markers, as well as the actual given amount of time that's playing for, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and so on. And also, I have my little shuttle controls over here on the left-hand side for play, move forward by a frame, rewind all the way to the beginning, turning audio on and off, even a couple little like resolution changes for playing back, and even being able to like loop it so it plays back over and over again if I want to just kind of see it. Ways to cut the video and adding transitions to it. And we even have a place for a soundtrack. So the basics here, if you want to be able to just kind of see your video, you have a little timeline indicator, this little blue arrow with the red line, and that's going to show you what part of the clip is playing back in your edit. So I can actually click and drag this, by the way, to scrub back and forth between my video, but I'm just going to drag it all the way over here to the left. Alternatively, if you just want to go back to the very beginning, you can even hit the little kind of reverse icon here, give that a click, this little left arrow, and it will take you back to the beginning as well. To play, simply hit the play button here, little right pointing triangle, and that will play the video. If you want to stop, you can hit the little stop button here, a little square. And you can even do this with your space bar on the keyboard if it's set up properly. I know sometimes people have a little bit of an issue with this depending, so please, if it doesn't work, just revert your shuttle controls for now. But typically, as is on most video editors or audio editors, the space bar is usually your play and stop button. Now, as you saw also, this little timeline indicator, when it got to the very end of my clip, it just automatically went back to the beginning and started playing again. That was because I went to this little icon right here, this little gear, and turned on loop playback. The other thing too is the video looks pretty good. This is actually a 1920 by 1080, so it's a high definition clip that was captured. It shouldn't have any major problems playing this back on most computers, but if you're using a little bit of an older rig or a laptop perhaps, and it's playing back kind of sluggish, you might want to consider changing the resolution here from 100% down to something like 25. Now, what'll happen is when it plays back, it'll look a little choppy, it'll look a little pixelated, but it's a lot less intense on your computer. So it's one of those little things you can do if your computer's not really geared for video editing. You can knock down the resolution. It'll look great once you save it and export it. It'll go back to the full or high definition, but it'll only look reduced while we're currently in the midst of editing this. These little guys, the skip frame, the left and right buttons here, if you click that, as you can see, it just goes forward or backward by 1 frame at a time. And that will just help you make some precision edits, as we'll come to in a little bit. If you have any audio that you wish to disable for the time being, and this, by the way, is only for mute audio playback while you are playing this, you can always turn this off so you don't hear any audio playing from the clip. However, when you export it, you will still get audio. So this is not the way of turning audio off on everything. This is just a simple little way, just so you have to listen to it play over and over again. Or if you're in a crowded space like a coffee house and you don't want people to hear the type of video editing or, playing the same clip over and over again, it would probably be just good manners. Else you might want to consider investing in a nice pair of headphones. So let's edit this clip. Now, the issue I'm having here is the fact I've got this beautiful butterfly, but the clip might be a little bit too long for the context of my video. So if you want to trim this down, if you take your mouse cursor and place it at the end of this blue block, just at the very, very edge, you'll see it actually turns into like a bracket symbol with some arrows coming out of it. When you see it like that, you're free to click and drag to the left to trim off the edge of this. And it'll show a little pop-up window, just kind of show you what frame that you're currently on. So that way when you let go, you'll know what you edited to. You can do this at the beginning as well. It just gets a little bit confusing because when you do it at the beginning, I can trim off the first part of it. But when I let go, this clip then jumps all the way over to the left. All right. So even though I have trimmed off part of the beginning, you can't really see it in context with the length of the clip. Now, if I click and drag this clip to the right a bit, as you can see, I can move it over. And by the way, if you have nothing playing, if you have a blank space in your timeline, this is what happens. You just get a blank screen. But if I pull it over, I can always re-expand that clip by putting my mouse cursor over the edge and then clicking and dragging again to re-expand that clip. And the same thing at the end. I can always pull it back out if I want to make it longer again. So you can trim this very easily just by dragging those edges back or forth, depending on what you want to trim off. So maybe I have a 3-second clip instead of a 12-second clip. So that way, in context with the rest of the video I create, maybe it's a little more easily digestible overall. But that's just one clip. I mean, I can just have a video of a butterfly playing over and over again, but what happens if you want to add something else to it? To do that, if I look at the far right over here on the video editor for the timeline, there's a little plus icon on this track. If I give that a click, from there, I can go ahead and choose another piece of video, for example here, and press open. And as you can see, that drops in yet another video segment right here, and it puts it right in the same timeline. So when the butterfly's done playing, as it plays to the next clip, there you go. Your next clip of video is going. And of course, the same rules apply. Perhaps I want to start this a little bit later in the scene. So maybe I can put my mouse cursor right over the edge here for this particular clip. And depending on what clip is going to edit, you'll see that little bracket kind of faces the direction of the clip is going to edit. So if I was going to edit the video of the girl playing the guitar, you'll see that the little bracket kind of faces that direction towards the right. And if I click and drag it to the right, as you can see, it'll show me that same window to let me know what I'm trimming. And when I let go, the rest of the clip just automatically magnetically attaches back to the other side. I can do the same thing on the right here. I can pull this down, and then I have a nice little clip of the girl playing guitar. Now, if you decide that, well, I really want this the other way around, I really want the girl playing the guitar before I see the video of the butterflies, rearranging clips is super easy to do. You can do it in the timeline. I can always come over here to the guitar and click and drag it over and put it in the space before the butterfly. You see there's like a little rectangle that appears there to let me know that when I let go, as you can see, I swapped out the order in which these clips play. But I can also do that on my layers panel over here. You'll see that this thing called a video group appears, and what that video group is referring to is the track this video group 1 here is a track inside my video editor, and here's the clips that are going to play. They play from the bottom here to the top. So if I wanted to switch the order of these, I can actually go here and just change the order by clicking and dragging them. As you can see, they swap positions in the timeline. So if you have like 15, 16 different clips of video and you like want to swap between them to adjust the order, you can do it really easy rather than actually having to mess with this giant timeline and maybe having to zoom in and out so you can actually see the details of it. You can just come on over here to Layers panel and just adjust the positions like that. Again, it plays from the bottom video first to the top video is the last. Now, if you want to be able to see a more detailed view of your timeline, at the very bottom of it, we actually have this little slider here that allows you to zoom in and out. This does not change the length of the clips, all right? So, for example, if I have this extended all the way out here and I play this back, it's not going to last any longer than if it's zoomed all the way over to the left and the clips are this long. All right, this is only so you can see a more detailed view of your video clips and or audio. Now let's just go ahead and add one more clip. We hit the plus icon here, add that clip of video 3, again, download from Pexels, and it's this nice kind of a trolley or airlift. I'm not sure exactly what that's called, but again, I can come in here and trim this down so it's about the size I want it to be. And now I have this nice little montage of video clips that I can work with. Okay, and again, if I want to switch the order, well, just adjust them over here or come on over here and just kind of readjust them here, and that will be fine. Okay. So now that I have my little montage put together, let's say, for example, I want the girl to continue playing guitar at the end of this clip. What I can do is I can actually go in and make a copy of her layer. So, for example, if I select her clip right from this, the layer panel, or even over here in my timeline, what you can always do is you can duplicate her layer by doing Control or Command J, and that will make an identical copy of her playing guitar here. As you see, I have two copies of the same thing. I can move it into position. So I can either do that over here in the timeline, so I'm just dragging it over, or again, I can just kind of change the position here inside my layers panel. And I can edit this accordingly. If I come on over, I can just go ahead and adjust this however I want to do. And now we actually have like a montage where she's playing guitar, and then the butterfly and the carts, and then it comes back to her playing again. So maybe it's like her telling a story. So you can actually make copies of the clips and trim them so it's a different edit to continue your story that way. Or, say for example, maybe I like this, but maybe I just want to cut off like a little piece in the middle here. That's not a problem either. What we can do is if this red line is at the place you want to cut a piece of video, just come on over and hit the little scissor icon right here in your timeline, your next to your shuttle controls, and that will actually divide a clip into two independent clips that can then be moved around or selected independently. As you can see, I can click on them independently and repositioned that way. So that way, if you wanted to divide up your clips, you can always cut them and then just move a piece of them to a different part of the timeline if you like. Now this part looks a little weird because you see it kind of stutters right there, so no biggie. I'll just come in and kind of edit off that little piece. I'll try this again. Oh, there we go. So as you can see, it's just kind of looping back. I can always come back over and expand the very end of this a little bit, and there we go. So again, if you want to cut a piece of video, just put the timeline indicator where you want to cut it, hit the little scissor icon right here, and what that's going to do, make sure the piece of video is selected, my apologies. Make sure the timeline indicator is in place, video is selected, hit the scissors, and that will divide it into two pieces. From there, you can either move them around if you want to, or maybe you just leave them there, maybe you transition between them or something. So now that you understand the basics on how to edit and how to navigate, what happens if we want to add some transitions? Maybe between the girl and the butterfly, I want to fade in between them. That is where this icon comes in. And when you click on it, it's going to get asked for duration and a type of transition. Now, there's really only one transition you're going to work with on any given bass, and that's really crossfade. That's all this really does is cuts and crossfades. Even though there's a bunch of fancy Dan words here like fade with black, fade with white, fade with color, fade in general, they're not going to do exactly what you think it's going to do. What that is going to wind up doing is if I choose one of those options, like fade, I can click and drag the word fade here in between two clips I want to apply it to, and you see there's a rectangle that appears. When I let go, it'll apply a crossfade between those two pieces. But in this particular case, I screwed up and I put the just fade. As you see, what happens is it fades to nothing and then comes back to the other. So let me undo this. I'm just going to hit Control-Z a couple times to step backwards. Here we go. And if I come back and try this again, I'm going to try crossfade this time. I'm going to click and drag that in between the two clips and let go. And that allows me to crossfade between those particular ones. So when I play that, as you can see here, it automatically fades between those. And it takes place over a time of 1.5 seconds. That is what this little bow tie symbol represents, is how long it is playing over. You can extend or decrease the amount of time that the fade happens by putting your mouse cursor over the edge of that icon and clicking and dragging it left or right. Dragging it left will decrease the time it plays over. So as you see here, it's going to be a very quick fade. Or if you want to increase it, you can drag it over to the right to increase the time. So in that case, you can actually have it play longer or shorter, depending on where or how long that little bow tie is. If you decide that all later on you don't want it all together, just click on it, hit the backspace key or delete key, and that will delete that transition, and it just goes back to being jump cuts. So however you prefer to do it is fine. But the reason why the fade to white or fade to black or any of those are kind of weird, because this is what it does. Let me put it here. And when I play it, see, it just kind of fades into that color and then fades out, which is fine if you want to do like quick flashes or something. Maybe like you want to make it look like it just kind of does that old film effect where it's like it overexposes and then comes back to the next clip. But usually you just want to stick to the standard fades and cuts when you edit your video, just to keep it simple and not be too intrusive on the visuals. So we've done pretty good here. We've edited our video, we've cut it, we've reordered it. A couple other little quick things you might want to consider doing is if you wanted to actually play two clips simultaneously, maybe you wanted the clip of this butterfly. Let me just go ahead and duplicate it. So I'm going to select it here and do a Control-Command-J. I want this clip of the butterfly to play at the same time as my singer, just kind of like faded out over her. If I want two clips to play simultaneously, what you have to do is come over here to your Layers panel and click and drag that clip up and out of the video group here. As you see, that creates a secondary track. With that track, I can drag it to where I want to play in my timeline. The only problem is right now, it's covering everything up, so I can't see anything underneath it. But look what happens when I come over here to this layer and change the opacity. If I take the opacity down, you'll see that as it plays, you're able to see through this to the clips that are playing underneath it, which you can get some really weird effects like you're seeing now. So if you want two clips to play simultaneously, just make sure to drag it out of the video group like so to the place you want to be. If you want to scale it in a position, so maybe they're both playing at the same time, but it's like a picture-in-picture, just make sure the layer you want to scale is selected and do Control or Command T. T as in transform. It will ask you to convert to a smart object first, which is fine. And then you'll be able to scale it to the size you want it to be and press the Enter key. So once you have that done, as you can see, when I play back, it plays back as a picture-in-picture like so. If you don't want that layer after all, just drag that little layer to the trash in your Layers panel and it'll throw it away. Same thing with anything here. If you decide that, oh, you know, I don't really want this secondary song being played, I can always just make sure it's selected and then either hit the delete key or just drag that layer from the layer panel to the trash can to throw it away. Now, the last thing you might want to consider doing, and for copyright purposes, I can't do this, but if you wanted to add a soundtrack right here where it says audio track, if you hit the plus icon next to this, you can actually choose the MP3 you want to add to here. And with that, it'll put it in and you have music playing. You would edit it the exact same way as the video clips by click and dragging on the edge if you want to extend or decrease it. Okay. Now, with your video, the only other thing I might want to consider is that some clips actually have audio playing on them that you may not want. It could be engine noise or something from this particular clip, and you don't want to hear the background noise of this clip. You just want to hear music play. Well, in that case, if you hit the little arrow to the right of any one of these clips, it expands to show you some additional options. Hitting the little music note icon above it will allow you to do things like change the volume, even allow you to fade in and fade out on the track, and will also allow you to mute audio on it if you don't want to hear anything at all. Fade in allows it to kind of like slowly turn the volume up as it begins to play, and then as the clip ends, the volume will slowly go down. And that takes place over the amount of seconds that you dial in, either by typing in the value here or sliding the arrow to the appropriate value. So you may want to consider muting your audios if you don't want to hear the audio from that clip, if it's just a background clip or a B-roll clip. The other thing you can always do is if you click on one of these clips and you go to their little options here, you can even change the speed of this. You can make them run faster or slower. So for example, in this clip of the girl playing guitar, if I want to slow it down a little bit, you can. I can go in here and say speed's running at 50%. The problem is it'll probably look a little choppy on playback, and the reason why is the amount of frames per second that's playing through. That will only affect this particular frame, and if necessary, I can always go back here and adjust it back to 100, right? So we'll play at real time, or I can even go in back and change it to something crazy like 200, right? So she's playing twice as fast. Or maybe I do something crazy in this clip. Maybe it's playing at 300%, right? So it's super fast. So those carts are like flying down those rails. Probably not good if you're trying to promote health and safety for that particular park, but it can be done if you want to speed things up. If you do plan on shooting slow motion, like you do want to be able to slow down your clips, shoot in higher frame rates. That's why your camera does have settings like 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second. Heck, if you're shooting with like an iPhone these days, you can do what I know that there's a 240 frame per second. Some Sonys shoot at 960 frames per second. And of course, if you have like a phantom camera, you can shoot in like the tens of thousands apparently or more. But those are designed specifically for slow motion purposes. Okay, so if you want to slow something down, you have to shoot at a higher frame rate. So when you slow it down, it'll compensate for the amount of frames that are being played back in real time. So that's why those high frame rates exist in most of those cameras, is specifically if you're doing skate videos or something, you want to do a slow motion jump, shoot high frame rate. You can always speed things up. Doesn't matter how many frames per second it is. It's always going to look pretty smooth. But when you slow it down, higher frame rates. If you want to do a little color correction or something on one of these frames, maybe I want to go over here and make it just a little more vibrant. Come over to your layer panel here. Make sure the appropriate clip is selected, and also that your timeline indicator is over it. So if I click on this clip because I know I want to adjust the color, make sure the timeline indicator is over that clip as well. So you know which clip you're going to be editing here in the layers panel. Come on down to the adjustment layer icon and choose the thing you want to apply. For example, maybe here it's hue saturation. And when I make this adjustment, whatever it happens to be, maybe I want to do something crazy like that, it will only affect the layer underneath it because it's currently being clipped to that layer. That is how this is set up. All right. It may play back a little sluggish at first when you're playing it back because it has to buffer the frames. But later on, when you actually export this as a video, it'll come out and will look exactly like you anticipate it looking. All right. What you don't want to do is ever unclip this, because that means this is currently attached to this video clip. But if it becomes unclipped, say for example, if I right click on it and choose release clipping mask, that becomes something a little bit different, because that isn't actually going to affect, I think, everything before it. Let's see. Yep. It affects every layer underneath it in the layers panel. So you see now the girl has like the red flowers and stuff going on. So if you only want to affect the specific video clip that it's sitting above, make sure it's got that little arrow pointing down. If it doesn't, right click on the name of the layer and choose create clipping mask to make sure it does it. It does this by default when you create these, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. But again, just bear in mind that that can happen just in case. Now, when you want to save the video, if you go to your File menu, you can always choose Save As. And for the time being, just save as a Photoshop project, because that is going to save it with all the layers and everything intact, so you won't have to worry about losing anything later on when you come back to edit it. But when you're ready to save it as an actual video file, you go to File menu, scroll on down to Export, and choose Render Video. Okay, File, Export, Render Video. This is what's going to save it as a video file that you can upload to YouTube or share it via email, Dropbox, or wherever, Instagram, that you choose to do it. You would give it a name, choose a folder to save it into. I'll leave this set to Adobe Media Encoder for output, but I would recommend for your preset, just set this to high quality, which is the top one. They have different formats for different devices, or if you're going to be uploading to YouTube and stuff. Some of these are a little outdated, so please just leave it set to high quality so it uses a proper format, and we'll just use the document frame rate and document size of whatever video that you've imported to make sure it's matched when you export it. Other than that, just make sure range is set to all frames so it captures your entire video, not just whatever's currently highlighted. And for render options, you shouldn't have to worry about this unless, of course, you're dealing with any transparency or 3D models in here. So I'm just going to leave that stuff alone. When you hit render, it'll render out the video and save it as a MP4 file for you to use on any type of media that you like. So once you have that done, you actually now have a workable video. Now, there is more to this. You can put in still images, right? Just a couple little bonuses. If you want to put a still image, you would pretty much do it the same way. You hit the little plus icon over the right, except you would navigate to a still image instead of a video file and bring it in. And you can even animate those things and so on. We'll probably leave that for another time because this video has already gone on for quite some time. But just to let you know that you can add still videos to the overall project, and that would be fine. You can even add text and everything too. But for now, we'll cut it here. And I hope you learned a little bit about the basics of video editing. And I will see you guys next time.